I think we've talked, but like we don't really talk about like contracts. But man, that's my brother. Like I want that dude to get paid what he deserves. That dude is one of the most fierce and best players in our league, and he's respected throughout the league. We talk about as a defense, we circle players on offense. But offensive players have to circle number 90 week in and week out. And there's a level of respect there. I've had the best time being able to play with him. And, I hope this year is not the last time we play together because that dude, that's my running mate. And we create a lot of havoc together. And I just want to see that guy continue to be a Pittsburgh Steeler and be a one helmet guy.
Yeah, you don't only think of the Pittsburgh Steeler defense without thinking about you and TJ together. So, the idea, I mean, it's been thrown out. What if he gets traded? And so it's like, how do you handle those discussions as a team and as a unit?
I'm going up to Omar and I'm telling him that's not happening. If there's even a trade that gets up there, I don't think it helps our team to trade a guy like that.
Do you have that power? Are you?
No, I don't. I don't have that power.
You just bang on the door and be like, yo.
I'm gonna be like, hey, guys, we gotta have a talk. I don't know if it's even gonna work, but I'm gonna throw my hat in the ring and just say this cannot happen. And I fail, but that's just the way I feel.
So, Pat, I said earlier I played a shorter version of that clip, but I wanted to get the version of whenever Cam Heyward said he was going to go up to Omar's office. I thought that was kind of funny, but also realistic at the same time. The last thing a teammate wants to do is to have to answer questions for another teammate. Like, that's the last thing. So I give Cam a lot of credit right there. He obviously knew when he was going on Rich Eisen's show. That wasn't Rich Eisen. I guess there was fill-ins for him. One was actually Seth Rollins, the WWE star, but the last thing that a player wants to do is have to answer for another player. He did a great job at doing that. But with that being said, I don't think that this situation, as we've talked about for weeks now, Pat, is typical. I don't anticipate TJ Watt showing up to training camp because I just don't. I don't think it makes sense of sitting out of OTAs and minicamp if you're just going to show up at training camp. And I think that this situation, the reason why it isn't very typical compared to his last contract situation where he did have a hold-in is because that there are many guys at his position that wants contracts. And I do give credit that I very rarely do, and a lot of us very rarely do, to the Cleveland Browns in this situation. Because the Cleveland Browns, whenever Myles Garrett put out that press release, like he was transferring, like he was a college player, and saying that he wanted traded, the Cleveland Browns obviously called him upstairs and were like, look, we're not only going to pay you to keep you here, we're going to reset the market to the point where our enemies, if you will, the Cincinnati Bengals with Trey Hendrickson and the Pittsburgh Steelers with TJ Watt, knowing that those guys at your position are up for contract deals, it's going to make it hard for them to pay those guys. We have the money to do it. We like to shell out money. We gave Deshaun Watson $250 million. We have no problem with paying you to keep you here and to compensate you fairly, but we're going to overcompensate you just so we can screw over our foes. So I do give them credit. I don't know if they actually thought about that, but it's a good play if they did to screw over and make a messy situation like this for TJ Watt and Trey Hendrickson. That's why I say it's not typical, because there is Micah Parsons out there. There is Trey Hendrickson. There was Max Crosby. There's guys at his position that want to be the highest paid. I've been 50-50 the whole time. Not a great place to be as a radio host, but I have. I understand the Steelers side of it. I understand TJ Watt's side of it. I just don't think that TJ Watt is going to show up at training camp unless they are very close on a deal. He's not going to do a hold-in my opinion.
Yeah, well, you've been around this, and you know some of the players, obviously. You've seen this happen before. I think these are unprecedented times with the result of the top of the market at that position. First of all, from Cam's standpoint, A, you never want to speak for a teammate. B, you never want to lose a teammate, a friend. You don't want that to end, ever. So I understand his perspective. And I think his points are valid, right? You want guys to, when you have genuine relationships and trusting relationships with teammates, you want them to be compensated fairly for what they do. My issue with this the whole time has been, I think, the Cleveland Browns situation. While they did, if they were playing poker here or playing chess, it was a good move. I'm not sure they were. they're in a much different situation from a competitive standpoint than the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think TJ Watt knows that. So I think he's probably fighting with, do I seed on the individual side, take a little bit less money to play for the Steelers and try to win? Or do I need to get my bag and prove a point here? That's where I see the issue. I've never been in that position. It's a lot of money. The money that would be forgiven or given up is a lot of money. $2, $3, $4 million a year is a lot of money. Again, and now that I know that Jack Lambert held out, I feel a little bit better about this whole situation. And I'm giving TJ Watt a little bit more grace maybe than I was before. But at this point in your career, when you've won nothing as a Pittsburgh Steeler, and you say that is of chief importance to you, I think you're at a crossroads of team and self that is very precarious. And either way you go here may define the future of both the team and your own reputation. And I think that is that's the weight that's cast upon and thrust upon the best players in the game, of which TJ Watt is absolutely one of the best players in the NFL.